Oh my god. Guys, I finally did it. I crunched all the numbers. I put on a pair of glasses and picked up a clipboard, so you know what I'm talking about's going to be legit. I've discovered the identity of the traitor. And it's Ike. It was Ike all along. Who is Ike? Nobody knows, which makes him the perfect suspect for a mystery arc. Ike, the character in One Piece that exists and yet doesn't exist at the same time. He's like the Schrodinger's cat of One Piece characters. I've only ever met one person who knows his real identity, and that person will take Ike's identity to his grave. Anyway, One Piece chapter 1078 review titled Escape Limit. Let's find out if they have a limit to their escape. They actually kind of already do. There's lots of limits to them escaping. They can't just leave. They'll get fried by the Frontier Dome. So, see if that's, specifically looking at anything. Also, just aside as a little bit of a caveat. So I know the official version of the chapter is not out yet, but I first read this chapter yesterday, which was March 15th. Which was the Ides of March, which is the day that, Julius Caesar got the whole, oh God, no, why, oh, Brutus, why? That whole thing happened. So, a famous traitor, executing somebody, and then in this chapter, we're gonna find out the traitor at the very end, so, Alright, so cover series, Germa double sixes, Emotionless Excursion. What number are we up to at this point? 33! 33 of these, okay. So last time we had Caesar and Judge finally realizing that they're not really enemies, and we're skipping right over a few things, but in this cover series, we have the formation of Neo-Mads. We have Caesar and Judge standing there, clasping their hands while a giant celebration is occurring behind them. They have the huge banner of the Germa double six. We got confetti. We have a whole parade happening on the deck of the mobile fortress of the Germa. They are forming a new Mads organization, cleverly titled Neo-Mads. Oddly enough, not the first time in One Piece where an organization has started based off of a former organization called the Neo version of that organization. I'm of course referring to the Neo Marines in One Piece Film Z, and we all know how that worked out for Zed, right? Yeah. Anywho, it's really interesting because I did a video earlier this week where I was talking about Caesar and Judge possibly being the traitors. That is not the case, as what we're going to see in this chapter. However, them working together, they could definitely come up with some crazy evil science, so we'll see where this goes. I love how you have all the Germa soldiers that are like, yeah, Judge, Caesar, I guess, okay. But then you also see Ichiji and Reiju way in the background, and you see them like walking away, like they're there at first watching Judge and Caesar fight, but then they like decide. I want to imagine this happened in the span of like 5 minutes just for comedic effect. Like, one moment Caesar and Judge are just like, I hate you more, and then all of a sudden it's just like, wait a second, do I hate you? Actually, I don't hate you. You're okay. All right, everybody, we're forming a new organization. And then the banner just unfurls and just like da-da-da-da-da-da. And everyone comes out dancing. The clone soldiers of the Germa do a pre-planned, like, choreographed dance number or something. And everyone's happy and dancing. And then Reiju is just like, oh, God, no. Like, Reiju and Ichiji cannot like physically disobey Judge's orders just because that's the modifications that were done to them, but they're still not going along with this. He's like, nope, you know what, I'm done, don't care, and they just walk off. So it's interesting. We're going to see where this is going to go. I don't know if this is, I don't think this is the last installment yet. It might be. I mean, this would be a cool place to end the cover series because, this big, ending, and then this could tie into something at the end of Egghead. They might still show up and save everybody. That was another idea I had. What if Caesar, using his gas technology, basically creates a dirigible where the Germa fortress becomes mobile, it could fly, and so then it could just fly over Egghead and pick everybody up and then just get out of there. So maybe that could happen, who knows. Anyway, we continue in Egghead. We are back down in the fabrication sphere. That seems to be a general thing we're doing last couple of chapters. We see what's going on with Sentomaru on the lower level, and then we cut up to the lab for the real stuff that's happening with like the Straw Hats and the Seraphim and the Vegapunks and everything. So we actually see Sentomaru communicating with Stussy. I guess like one of the only Den Mushis like left because they can't communicate outside the island, and the signal's getting scrambled and everything. But Stussy is still able to communicate with Sentomaru. Interesting enough, because she's in the lab in the Frontier Dome, still able to communicate with Sentomaru outside of the dome. So maybe the dome doesn't actually block Den Mushi's signal, or maybe she has like a special Den Mushi that's like a direct link to Sentomaru's. I don't exactly know. Also, it could be like, you know how like in some certain factories they'll have like basically a closed circuit kind of thing when it comes to phones. Like you could pick one up and you can only communicate with other parts of a factory. It might be something like that. It might be hardwired into it. I know I'm talking about psychic snails here, but it's interesting. So Stussy is explaining the whole situation of like what exactly Cypherpole Zero was supposed to do. They were supposed to arrive there, execute the Vegapunks, and then that's when the Marines and Kizaru and everybody was supposed to show up afterwards. And this situation's a little bit different from Ohara, because if you remember with Ohara, all they pretty much did is send one Buster Call, okay? So you might be wondering, why hasn't like they're obviously going above and beyond Buster Call level at this point. They're going beyond just sending 5 battleships with 5 Vice Admirals. They're going to the next level here. And it makes sense because normally, okay, Buster Call works as a deterrent when you're talking about just a regular island. That's sort of more to keep the citizens of the One Piece world in check, all right? So if you're just growing up on some random island in, let's say, the West Blue, and you're a farmer or you're just a baker or something, the threat of a Buster Call exists for you not to really be asking too many questions, okay? You don't ask too many questions about the Void Century or about, studying what it's all about, or the Will of D or Joy Boy or anything like that, because of the threat of a Buster Call, where if you're just a normal average Joe working in the One Piece world, the threat of 5 Navy battleships led by Vice Admirals nuking your entire island, just bombarding it from all sides until it's nothing but rubble, that's pretty intimidating, I would imagine, and you saw what happened with Ohara. However, it doesn't always work, because as Stussy mentions here, like, number one, Vegapunk's research has actually gone well and far beyond Ohara's research. So the government found out somehow, we're going to find out later in the chapter, that Vegapunk has been researching the Void Century, and as Shaka even mentioned earlier, having government connections means nothing. It doesn't matter how high up you are in the government, it means nothing if you are researching the Void Century and they find out about it. They will eliminate you, no questions asked, okay? So that's the first concern, that they know what Vegapunk's up to and that his research is greater than Ohara. And number two, unlike Ohara, which was just an island that was filled with just scholars, they didn't have a defense force. They were literally there defenseless just to research science. So the government could basically just walk in, knock down their front door, and then boom, blow up the Tree of Knowledge with really no resistance. Here, it's a little different. We're on a futuristic island that has security protocols, force fields, an army of robots that can fire lasers, bubble shields, laser gun turrets, mechanized sea beasts patrolling the waters. This is a highly fortified island, and so Stussy is just like, hey, that's why they're going way above a regular Buster Call. This is like a Neo Buster Call or something. They are sending all of the Marines. You got an Admiral coming. You got a member of the Gorosei coming. Later on, we're going to see a bunch of other high-ranking Marines showing up. So they're really not playing around here. They are planning on annihilating Egghead Island on an all-out, full-scale war here, okay? They are bringing their best and their brightest to the battle, okay? There's a scene where Sentomaru calls Kizaru Uncle Kizaru again. Like, Uncle Kizaru is coming. I've said this before, but it always comes up in the comment section, so I gotta say it again. Sentomaru is not related to Kizaru, okay? Referring him to uncle is not the same thing as a blood-related uncle. It's a thing like Sentomaru's referring to Kizaru like a mafia boss or like a Yakuza boss. Like, Big Boss Kizaru. That's just the way Sentomaru talks, and that's the term that Sentomaru uses for Kizaru, okay? They're not blood-related or anything, because I always get that. People are always like, maybe Sentomaru's the traitor because he's Kizaru's nephew. I'm like, no, he's not. He really isn't. It's kind of like in other anime where characters might refer refer to somebody as their big brother or big sister, and they're not actually blood related. It's not exactly like that, but close enough. The word can mean uncle, but it's not really literal blood uncle, okay? So there's that. I just want to bring that up because that always gets brought up at any time. Anyway, so Stussy is explaining all this to Sentomaru. Remember, it was Stussy, Jinbei, and Sanji in that one group. Sanji left to go help Nami, so now it's just Stussy and Jinbei, and they're actually using the Dom shoes to like levitate through the lab to like make good time to like, because they can basically straight up fly. Everybody with the Dom shoes could fly. It's just up until now they were just like taking a leisurely stroll through the lab and just like, oh, what's going on? Oh wait, things are actually getting serious. We should probably fly. And so they start moving, right? So back down at the lab where all of the scientists are, Sentomaru's there. He's still pretty banged up, but he's like, okay, time to nut up or shut up, everybody. You need to get off this island right now because there is a massive just fleet, an actual legit fleet from the real ass Marines that are coming here to obliterate everything. All of you scientists, all of you non-combatants, you need to get off this island at once. And you can't afford to hesitate. So the doors of the lab open up of the factory and they just start spilling out. And they just start like, we gotta get out of here! Now, I gotta ask you guys a question. Let's say you were a non-combatant on Egghead Island right now. What would you do? What would you do with this information? You gotta feel bad for these people, you really do. They're just like, some of them might just have like, you know, like a scholarship at some university or something. It's just like, wow, Billy, we really loved your report on paleontology. Tell you what, this summer, you get to go study at Egghead Island. Only 5 people get this scholarship, but hey, your report on dinosaur bones and being related to dragons was just so intuitive, you get to go study at Egghead. And Billy's just like, yeah, that's awesome, man, I can't believe, who gets to study at Egghead? Only a few people all over the world get the privilege of going there. I can't wait. And then he goes there as part of like a grad school program or something, and he's there studying dinosaurs. And then all of a sudden it's just like, the Marines are coming, we gotta leave. And it's like, what? So what do? I don't know, like, the world government kind of already took out a lot of the ports, so I'm not really sure how you would get off the island. Part of me wants to think that just like, I would just hole up in one of the factories. Tell you what, I'm gonna go into the basement in one of the, like, you know, Vegapunk has to have a panic room somewhere, like a emergency bunker or something. I might take my chances just staying on the island, because like going out just seems like a guarantee to get just like, you know, attacked by somebody. The Marines, the pacifistas, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. What would you do in this circumstance? I'm not really sure. So anyway, we're now cutting over to the 3rd floor of Building C. This is where S-Snake was fighting against Lilith, Usopp, Franky. Pythagoras is also there, but he's just ahead at the moment. This is also where York was turned to stone as well. So last chapter, Lilith and Usopp also turned to stone. Franky, not entirely turned to stone. I knew that. Awesome. So with Lilith and with Usopp, S-Snake used the Love Beam. With Franky, she used Perfume Femur, which is a technique so far every time Boa has used it, it hasn't completely turned her opponent into stone. Usually she'll just kick somebody and parts of their body will turn to stone, but not the whole thing. And we saw that with Franky. So we saw the stone like covering some of his body, but it did stop, okay? So it's a little bit over half of Franky's body is covered in stone now. So both of his legs are stone, and then all the way up to like here is stone. So he can basically, like, the left side of his chest and his elbow and his like left arm, he can still move that. Half of his face is stone, but he still can talk and everything like that. So he's just like, ah, you stupid brat, I can still fight you, I got my left arm. Which, you know what, honestly, normally that would probably just be a bluff, but in the case with Franky, oh my god, let's see what Franky's got in his left arm alone. Okay, well, he's got weapons left, which is basically a freaking Gatling gun. He's got an automatic rifle, like, inside of his knuckles that he could just, like, yeah, okay, you know, he could just do that. I think he also can use coup de vent, you know, like that was, like, Franky's strongest attack pre-time skip. I think he has to just, he had a little connector thing for it. Remember that? Remember back when he used it at Galila way back? He had to take out this little pipe, like a little connector to use coup de vent. It's like Franky had accessories back then he had to equip onto him. He doesn't have those anymore. I think when he used it at Dressrosa against the factory, he just lifted up his left arm and it just inflated and coup de vent that way. It's like an air pressure cannon. I think he could use that. He's got rockets in his little like dome and his little orb thing. He could just open up that like Franky rocket launcher. So I think he can also still breathe fire. If he can still talk, he should still be able to use fresh fire. So Franky, even like, I would say a good 65% of him has turned to stone. Even with those being the odds, Franky could still fight back. He doesn't do any of that stuff. Mostly, I think, because, you know, he's fighting a little kid, so he's not just gonna, like, Franky rocket launcher! You know, I don't think he's gonna do that against S-Snake. But anyway, we have Pythagoras still, though, and Pythagoras is, like, hopping up and down and just like, S-Snake, why are you doing this? Please, who gave you the order? And Pythagoras is, like, crying, and S-Snake doesn't even care about Franky. She just, like, looks over at Franky and just like, you damn brat, get over here! And it's just like, okay, whatever. And then she just walks away and then goes over to Pythagoras. And Pythagoras is there like, who gave you the order, S-Snake? Just tell me. And then she just like looks down at Pythagoras and just steps on him. And I don't know if it's her stepping on Pythagoras that causes this, but a giant explosion occurs. Okay, like boom, like it just dwarfs all of them. It knocks everything away. Franky does not get knocked away. I'm not sure about Lilith and Usopp and exactly how they're going there, because it seems like their statues would have gotten destroyed in this. If we're going along with the logic that turning you to stone also makes you heavier, though, Franky probably weighs like several tons right now, so he can't, you know, he's grounded a little bit. But this is a huge explosion, so if that occurred from like her stepping on Pythagoras, like, what does Vegapunk power these satellites with? Like nuclear, like plutonium, uranium? I don't know what he uses. Something, freaking antimatter explosion or something. I don't know. But then S-Snake just begins to just walk away. So she doesn't really care about Franky at all. She doesn't really care about anybody else that she turned to stone. She just walks away. Okay. So now we're cutting over to building a second floor where we had Chopper's group with Robin and Atlas. Remember, they weren't fighting anybody. They're actually flying now as well. They're just going around the lab and they're like, oh man, there's crazy nonsense and explosions happening. It must be the Seraphim. And Atlas is like, no, that's impossible. It couldn't be the Seraphim. We ordered them to stand down. He's like, I don't know what's going on. We heard Nami scream earlier. Now, this is actually really smart because Robin is like, well, Nami did scream, but there's somebody on our crew that would immediately rush over and help her, talking about Sanji. So it's like, we really honestly don't need to worry about Nami right now. Sanji will take care of that. But we do need to find Vegapunk right now in the middle of all this chaos. And at that point, that is when Atlas finally mentions, well, you know, now that you mention it, there is a sealed off laboratory in the basement of the lab that, like, has been inaccessible for years. I guess we could go there. And then Robin and Chopper are like, yes, let's go to the one place that's been sealed off for years that would make a perfect place to hide and lock away somebody. I guess if you want to. I mean, it's just been sealed off forever. Nobody can get in. Like, okay, show us where it is. So it's looking like Atlas, Chopper, and Robin's group are going to be the first ones to discover what's happening in the basement. And so at the end of the chapter, we'll see where that goes. We now cut back over to building a third floor, so it's one floor up, where we had Nami's group, Nami, Edison, Brook, and then Sanji showed up last chapter to fight against S-Shark. So Nami's there holding Edison, like, Edison, hold on! Edison's like a robot, so he's just like, thank you for assistance, error 404, blue screen of death, fail. Edison's red ringing of death, it's not good. It's not good, everybody, it's a red ring of death! Then we have Brook, which, by the way, Brook is now doing something that I realize he should have done like 5 chapters ago, because Brook has an ability which would essentially make this entire like mystery arc way easier to solve. Brook can turn into a ghost. Brook can turn into a ghost. Like Danny Phantom. I'm going ghost! I'm going ghost! Yo! And literally he's a ghost. He's intangible. He can literally phase through walls. That's what he does. So literally, what Brook should have done at the beginning of all of this should have just like, I'm gonna turn into a ghost and then just like look through the lab really quick, like the whole lab. I'm just gonna go straight down and just like look through every single room. And he would have found Vegapunk like that. If he would have turned into a ghost in the control room like 5 chapters ago and would have just like gone straight down into the lab, into the Devil Fruit Lab, he would have found Vegapunk in like 5 minutes. All right, like, that's just funny to me. Whatever, better late than never. He's finally getting around to being like, yo, I can turn into a ghost. I'm just gonna go look around. All right, and so then we have the fight between S-Shark and Sanji. Now, last time, Sanji comes running in, giving off the mighty dictations of the Constitution of Sanji Land, and he slammed right into S-Shark, knocking him through a wall. Big explosion occurred. Of course, because, you know, they're Lunarians and all, and they have the flames up, S-Shark came right back out, and he's ready for a fight. But it's very, very clear he's not going to be able to injure Sanji, because literally, S-Shark, who's, remember, like, his specialty is fishman karate, because it's Jinbei's DNA, okay? So S-Shark walks out, runs up to Sanji with the flames on his back still active, and just, whoo, punches Sanji square in the face. Sanji takes it like a champ. Sanji just, boom! Got another one in ya? Not even fazed by it at all. He doesn't get knocked back. There's no blood. He doesn't break his nose. He's not bleeding. Just a little bit of scuff on his forehead. As Shark is just, boom, punched him right in the face. Sanji's just like, nothing happened. You know, and it's at this point where S-Shark realized, like, can I feel fear? You know, so that's all we got from that, but I think it's very clear, because it's like at this point, Sanji can basically use S-Shark like one of those paddle ball things, you know, like the little paddle balls you bounce back and forth. Sanji could just like, boom, kick S-Shark right through a wall, he comes right back, boom, kicks him again, leaves, comes right back. But we can see that that might not actually work, because the Seraphim are not stupid. They might not feel certain emotions, but they're certainly not stupid, because now we're cutting back over to the control room where we have Zoro and Luffy, Lucci, and Kaku fighting against S-Bear and S-Hawk. So they're brawling with them for a little bit, and with the information that Zoro gave them, like, hey, we have to wait for their flames to go out, but their flames have not gone out yet. Now, a couple of people have noticed this, and I didn't realize it, so I'll bring it up. There are several cases where the Seraphim's flames have gone out in the last few chapters, okay? One example is when S-Snake came in contact with the bubble, and she was weakened by that bubble, her flames instantly went out. So probably any kind of ability like Sea Prism Stone, anything like that, or the bubble technology, that comes in contact with a Seraphim, their flames will immediately go out. Other person mentioned that whenever they use their Devil Fruit abilities, so like whenever S-Hawk used the power of the Dice Fruit, his flames went out there. So we can look at that a little bit. I don't know if that's always a constant, because I think there was a scene where S-Snake used the Love Beam and she still had the flames on her back. I don't know if that was like a thing, if I might be misremembering that, but there's a situation there where, you know, the flames do go out, but they're not going out here. Which makes me wonder if, like, the Seraphim are smart enough to know that, like, oh yeah, they've discovered our weakness. We shall not use any of our Devil Fruit powers now. You know, like they're aware that they know that when the flames go out, they're vulnerable, so they're not going to let their flames go out. Like, why would they, right? Like, if they know what the advantage is, okay? So anyway, while they're fighting, though, S-Hawk just left. He just leaves in the middle of a clash. And so they're like, oh, that S-Hawk guy left. What's going on? And so they hyposit that it's like, well, S-Hawk probably realized that fighting us is going to be too difficult, so he's going to go eliminate the other members of the Straw Hats. Probably what the Seraphim were ordered by the traitor, who we're going to find out here at the end of the chapter. Probably what their order was something along the lines of defeat all of the Straw Hats, or defeat all of the Straw Hats, all of the other Vegapunks, something along that nature. Fight all of them. And so S-Hawk is smart enough to realize, wait a second, I'm fighting against Luffy and Zoro and Lucci and Kaku. They're too strong. I might be able to win if I keep at it, but this is going to take too long. So I'm going to go and defeat some other people, because that will also weaken them, like, psychologically. Like, if S-Hawk goes and, like, murders Brook or something like that, then it would be easier to take out Luffy, you know, so to speak. That would be the idea, you know? And so they realize that's a problem, so Zoro immediately rushes off to be like, I'll bring him down. And I love, once again, all of the Straw Hats have kind of like done a team meeting at this point, and have met and now are aware that Zoro is horrible with directions. He always has to have a buddy with him, no matter what. And in this case, Luffy looks over at Kaku and he's like, hey, Usopp, you have to go with him. He always gets lost. And Kaku's like, ah, damn it, okay. By the way, who are you calling Usopp? So I love that. I love that all of the Straw Hats are all on the same page. Like, we have agreed, even Luffy has agreed. we can't let Zoro just wander around places by himself anymore. He always has to have a buddy with him, okay? So they've all agreed on that, but then also he looks over at Kaku and just sees Kaku's nose probably out of the corner of his eye, like Luffy's peripheral vision just sees Kaku's nose, and just like, oh, nose, Usopp, go save him! And then he's like, I'm not Usopp! He's like, listen, I already have 2 friends that have long noses, I can't, you know, you're Usopp, just go! And he's just like, whatever. So Kaku and Zoro are gonna go continue their fight with S-Hawk, while Lucci and Luffy continue their fight with S-Bear. Luffy uses Hawk Gatling, but it doesn't really do much because S-Bear still has the flames up, so he's getting knocked around, but it's not doing anything. And Lucci even says, you're not going to knock out their flames through sheer brute force. If that could have worked, it would have worked already, right? So Luffy and Lucci are going to have to come up with some other tactic to force S-Bear to use Arisa's shock or some ability of their devil fruit so that the flame goes out, or some other tactic, or Luffy's just going to have to go to Gear 5th and see what happens with that, honestly, here. Luffy and Lucci have not used their awakenings in this fight yet, so I'm curious on how that's going to go. So now, a very brief scene. We actually cut to a different scene with Bonnie as we get the narrator coming on. So first I'll just do the scene with Bonnie. It's very brief. It's a scene outside of the paw room where we see the door, and then we go inside and see Kuma's memory bubble, and Bonnie is there at the foot of the bubble. I actually don't know if she's in the bubble or if she's right outside of the bubble because of the perspective. She might be in the bubble weeping. And at any rate, she's either in the bubble or right outside of it on the ground, like doubled over and just weeping. Okay, and she's weeping into both of her hands, just like... So, she's either in the bubble still subjected to Kuma's memory world and like experiencing all of the pain that Kuma experienced throughout his entire life as a slave, and eventually all the other stuff that we don't know what happened into his life. So it's either that, or it's like she just got out of the bubble and then she doubled over in pain. Either way, a lot of pain that she's had to endure here, but at least she would probably understand the plight of her father a little bit better now. So after she recovers from that, maybe she'll be like, okay, I understand why Vegapunk did that now, you know, or something along those natures. So we get that, but we also have the narrator coming on that says, we only have 1 day until the incident of Egghead shocks the world. So talking about how the narrator will do this sometimes. We'll talk about future events that we haven't experienced yet as the fan base, as the readers. And so he'll be like, there's a huge event that's going to occur 1 day from now at Egghead that will be well known to the world as the Egghead incident. However, the original, the impetus for this event, the Egghead incident, dates back to 3 months ago. Dun 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 dun. Okay, so we cut back 3 months ago, so we get a little bit of a prequel to Egghead, exactly what was happening here. We're in Marijois. We have a bunch of people at Marijois being issued a alert from Egghead saying that, like, shh, yes, hello, this is Egghead. Shh, I would like to speak to somebody about Vegapunk. Shh, he's researching the Void Century. So this is somebody from Egghead, this is the traitor, leaking information from Egghead to Marijois. And I don't think they're talking to the Gorosei directly, but they're talking to somebody, maybe they're talking to Kong or somebody that has high authority in the world government, and they're saying, hey, you have it on good authority here, Vegapunk is researching the Void Century. So then, that's why they sent CP5 to the island, okay, 2 months ago. So they spent about a month maybe deliberating on this, of like, is the information credible? And even if the information is credible, even if Vegapunk is researching the Void Century, I mean, he does so much for us. Maybe this was not a decision I think the government made like that. You know, it's like, oh, Vegapunk's researching the Void Century, send everybody! You know, it's not quite to that level yet, because Vegapunk is really important. If he's researching the Void Century and if he's getting close to the truth, they gotta, you know, end him. But they're not gonna make that decision very willy-nilly. They're not just gonna make that off of on a whim. They're gonna consider it for a little while. So I bet they spent about a month just deliberating, like, what are we gonna do about this? I'm like, maybe it's not even true. Maybe they're just messing with us. All right, send Cypherpole 5 and just get a lay of the land in the situation. So they sent Cypherpole 5 2 months ago. They arrived. We see a scene with Cypherpole questioning Vegapunk. Vegapunk is there. Shaka is there. There's somebody in the background, like, beating somebody up. I don't know who that is. Is that Lilith? I don't know. There's like Vegapunk and Shaka there, and you know Cypherpole 5 is just like, hello there, Vegapunk. We've gotten reports that you've been researching stuff that you shouldn't be. And Vegapunk's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Quasar. Just standard science going on here. There's the laser cannon. There's the other laser cannon. There's the giant death robots. Oh, and here's a magic machine that gives you any food that you want. You know, just standard science. Want a cherry? And it's just like, okay, I guess. So. Cypherpole 5 leaves, but they report that everything's fine, but then they disappear. So then, 1 month later, they send Cypherpole 7, same situation, they report, everything's fine, they don't come back to base. 2 weeks later, they send Cypherpole 8, same story. So then they finally decided, the world government decided now, because they got another message from the traitor, but this one was directed at the Gorosei. So the traitor calls Marie-Joie again, who's like, I would like to speak to someone very higher up. Well, right then and there, we know who the traitor is. It's a Karen. Right? Like, it's right there in black and white. It's just like, when you call, it's, hello there, welcome to Marie-Joie reception desk. How may I direct your call? I would like to speak to your manager. Oh, God. All right, I'm just going to connect you to the Gorosei. What's really upsetting is when the Karen is just like, you know what, Gorosei? I would like to speak to your manager. And then the Gorosei are like, holy shit, they know about Eam! And then they connect to Eam, just like, hello. I have a word or two to say to you. Just like, I am Eam, the ruler of the world. Well, I don't care. You're running a really shit operation if you have to ask me. I was waiting for 25 minutes in line at the store. You don't have enough cashiers. Ah, yes, customer support will be with you briefly. It just like, da, 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 da. You know? Okay, so they Karen Marie-Joie so they could get all the way up to the Gorosei, and then they explain again in more detail. Put me through the top brass. The conversation between the 5 elders and this individual totally exposed the full extent of Vegapunk's research without a shadow of a doubt. So they took the word of the traitor, you know, at face value here. They explained everything, okay? So they realized simply sending Cypherpoles, like regular Cypherpoles, is not going to do it. So that was when they decided, about, I guess, 2 weeks ago, that was when they decided to send in Cypherpole Aegis 0. And then after Cypherpole Aegis 0, sending in all of the Marines, where Saint J. Garcia and Kizaru decided to go to the island. We also have a bunch of fleets of Marine battleships, and we see 4 members of the Marines, 4 high-ranking members of the Marines. One of them is Dahl, who is the Vice Admiral of G-14. We already saw her. But we also have 3 other Marines. Now, 2 of them I'm pretty sure we've never seen before. One of them is a dude that has a really long beard, and he also has like a streak of gray. He has a long black beard with like a streak of gray on his beard. He's got like sunken-in features. He's got sunglasses, and he's just like, yes, I'm walking. And then we have another dude that has, he's bald, and he has how many chins? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think this guy ate the chin fruit. He's got a lot of chins. He's like, I ate the mighty jowl fruit. Feel my jowls. You know, so that's that guy. The last person we see is a dude that has long blonde hair, glasses, and I think we've seen this person before. I think this is Rear Admiral Kadar. Rear Admiral Kadar was a Marine that showed up during the flashback with Jinbei and Fisher Tiger. He was a Rear Admiral that was part of G2 that went to go fight against the Sun Pirates and was defeated pretty handily. I believe the Sun Pirates defeating Rear Admiral Kadar was really what got them on the big leagues. You know, that's what got like Jinbei his first major bounty and Fisher Tiger's bounty and everything like that. And it was kind of ambiguous whether or not Kadar died at the end of that battle or if he survived, but if he survived, I mean, it's Oda after all, so this could very well be Kadar. Also, that happened like 10 years ago when Kadar fought against, you know, Jinbei and the Sun Pirates and Fisher Tiger and Arlong and everybody. That happened well over 10 years ago, I think like 11 years ago. So at this point, Kadar, he was a Rear Admiral back then. If he's still alive, he would be a Vice Admiral now. Like, there's no other real promotion for him. Remember, in the Marines, Marines, there's kind of like a ceiling you're gonna hit. When you hit Vice Admiral, you're pretty much stuck at Vice Admiral. You really can't be promoted after that because the Admirals are a very important class that can only have 3 people, 3 members, and they all have to be really powerful to a certain level. Like the difference in power between your average Vice Admiral and like Kizaru, Fujitora, Aramaki, that's all immense. You know what I mean? So let's say Kadar, right after that fight with the Sun Pirates, let's say a couple of months later, he got promoted to Vice Admiral. He's probably been Vice Admiral for like 10 years, because that's really the highest position most Marines could achieve. Okay, so that's also why we have a lot of Vice Admirals. There are so many Vice Admirals in the Marines, and that's the reason why. That's like the highest thing they can get. So, you know, it might be Kadar, it might not be. It's just the hair and then the shape of the glasses, because Kadar had these weird glasses that were like diagonal. They didn't go like this, they went like straight up like this. And also factoring in it, it's been 10 years since we've seen Kadar. This could be him. Okay, so anyway, that's the setup for everything there. So that was already planned, by the way. So the narrator explains that like the Marines, Kizaru, Cypherpole, HS0, all of this stuff was already planned like 2 weeks ago. That was the battle plan for Egghead and to bring Vegapunk in. However, then the Straw Hats showed up. That was not in their plan. And you even see a scene with Akainu and St. J. Garcia, not St. J. Garcia, actually Gorbachev, the dude with the Gorbachev birthmark thing. And, you know, you see Luffy there in Gear 5th in the center, like, ha ha ha. And, you know, Akainu is just like, did you say Straw Hats go into Egghead? Oh my god, that screws up our whole operation, you know what I mean? So that kind of threw the wrench in the works, but they're going along with it anyway, okay? The chain of events is going to culminate tomorrow, and the outcome of that will shock the world. So really the narrator is building up a bunch of hype here that this is going to be a war on a crazy scale. And you know what? I'm really excited. I really hope Oda doesn't skip over this battle, because after Onigashima, you know, that was the big epic battle, but now we're thinking about like, oh, we're entering the final saga. So the final saga, we're probably just going to have the epic final war at Laugh Tale, right? Like the big epic war of the throne or whatever Doflamingo was talking about, right? So I don't think a lot of people were expecting another big scale battle before Laugh Tale, but here we are. And this might actually be a bunch of things. This might be the event that the narrator was talking about with the Grand Fleet. Remember, the Grand Fleet was like, oh, they will also be part of another very important incident in the future. Well, the narrator's really building up this Egghead incident, so maybe this is when the fleet shows up. We got Cavendish, we got Bartolomeo, we got an IDEO. When IDEO shows up, you know it's ready for a battle, right? Everybody shows up maybe at Egghead, maybe that's the thing. Actually, that would make sense because the Marines are summoning a fleet, Straw Hats have to call in the fleet too. The only problem is who would learn about the fleet. Is there any way that somebody at Egghead that would know what's going on with the Marines would contact the Grand Fleet? Because the Straw Hats are all kind of busy right now, and I don't really see Luffy picking up the Den Den Mushing and calling up the fleet anyway. I don't see Luffy doing that. Let's see, Sentomaru could, but Sentomaru doesn't know anything about the fleet, is not connected to the fleet. Vivi's with Morgan's right now. She doesn't know anything about the fleet. You know, like, the only person that could really... Maybe Hyrudine? Maybe if the Giants figure out what's going on, maybe Hyrudine could? I don't know. This is weird. This is really weird. I don't know how the fleet could get involved here, but it would be cool if they did. Anyway, so that's all build up to this big epic war that's going to happen tomorrow on Egghead. We don't know what time it is right now. Like, what time is it on Egghead right now? Is it like 5 o'clock in the afternoon and they have to wait till the next day to fight? I don't know what's going to happen. But that also gives them time for other ships to arrive. So you also have to calculate for that. So last scene of the chapter, we finally cut down to the hidden laboratory, the old Devil Fruit lab in the basement of the Labosphere, where we see the events from last chapter. We see Shaka's body on the ground. You know, he's shot. He doesn't look like he's getting back up. And then we hear that sound of the katok, you know, like... which I now understand is not necessarily anybody's footwear. It's just the sound that you would make walking on, like, metal. So, like, metal stairs going down. It was that sound effect. So, anyway, you have Vegapunk inside of the prison cell, still bound with sea stone, so he can't really move, and he's just like, was this all you're doing, Quasar? Sorry, my Vegapunk voice and my Orochi voice kind of slip back into each other every now and then. Quasar, was this all of your plan? And then you have the mysterious individual, the traitor, walking over, slowly opening up the prison cell, stooping down, walking in, and in the last double page, it is revealed It's York, the 6th satellite of Vegapunk. York, giant woman that eats a lot and poops a lot, all right? She walks in, and she's like, "Oh, Stella, it's 'cause I wanted to be a celestial dragon." And she still has the same expression she always has. She doesn't really look evil. She just has the exact same expression she always does, except it's a little bit more ominous now because she's revealing her true nature. We have Vegapunk there in disbelief. Like, "Why are you doing this, York? Why do you want to be a celestial dragon? You've been to Marijois. Haven't you seen the celestial dragons? Those horrible people? Why would you want to be one of them?" "You sound just like Shaka." Well, he's dead now, so who cares? By the way, York also has, like, a giant pistol. Like, it wasn't a normal-sized pistol that shot Shaka, which is crazy, because it is a freaking cannon, because York is huge. York is, like, probably the height of, like, Smoothie in the Big Mom Pirates, okay? She's a giant woman, ladies and gentlemen, okay? She's even taller than Brook, and Brook's, like, 9 feet tall, so that gives you an idea. She's, like, Katakuri size, kinda. So, she has a gun, but it's, like, a giant cannon, and she's just like, you know, she goes into the prison and she has to like stoop down to like talk to Vegapunk, so she just has this giant gun like right there, okay? It's crazy actually that bullet did as much damage to Shaka. You'd think it would like eviscerated his head given the fact of how big that damn gun is. But anyway, let's see. Honestly, the world doesn't need more than one of us. It's hard to keep track of all the Vegapunks, isn't it? And so that's the end of the chapter, where Vegapunk is there just stunned and shocked and just flabbergasted at this turn of events. And York is there smiling and just like, "There can only be one of us." End of chapter. All right, well, first of all, I'm glad that I changed my mind on York being the traitor. Because remember when York got turned to stone by S-Snake a few chapters ago, I was like instantly like, well, I guess York's not the traitor. And then in the last review, I said this. We have no idea who this traitor is. It could be a bunch of people. It could be any of the satellites. I'm not taking any of the satellites off. Even York, even the ones that turned to stone, you could always say that was part of their plan so they could be exonerated. That's another way to do it. Yeah, I was like, you know what? That's what Oda wants you to think. That's actually another pretty common tactic when it comes to mystery novels and stuff. Eliminate somebody early on to make them think that they're dead, or they're out of the battle, or they're out of the running. They can't possibly be the traitor, and it turns out that they actually were. So this would work great, because if York was the one that controlled S-Snake, she could have just ordered S-Snake to turn me to stone first, and then after the battle is over, after everyone's eliminated, then turn me back. And that would have been easy for S-Snake to do. So there's the situation there. So we're going with the evil clone idea. So Vegapunk should have honestly known that creating 6 other versions of himself, one of them is going to be evil. Honestly, York, was not the evil one. That was Lilith. But still, you know what I mean? It's just like, I shall clone myself, Quasar. Nothing wrong could happen there. The fact that it was York was the one that, because that was, the one that we didn't really pay attention to York at all. York was just kind of in the background, just eating, sleeping, and pooping up until now. So I guess that's what you have to watch out for, I suppose. But I also am not 100% convinced yet, because the satellites are, at the end of the day, robots. Atlas even said this. Atlas looks human, but her face was clearly destroyed by Lucci, and you saw, robotic parts underneath, and, smoke and steam, and she said that, oh, you could just replace the head and the facial features with, spare parts. Now, some of them look more robotic than others, like Edison and Pythagoras look more robotic, and then you have Shaka, Lilith, and York that look more human, but they could all be made out of the same stuff. They could all be like androids at the end of the day, with a copy of Vegapunk's brain. So, I'm just curious whether or not this is actually York. I'm saying this because York, given that she's the one that doesn't really do a lot of science, she's always just sleeping and eating, it would be easy to somebody, let's say, take over York's body, hack into her mainframe or whatever, and then nobody would notice the difference because all she would have to do is just keep eating and sleeping. That's her one job. That's literally all she has to do. So if they hack into, let's say, Edison, and Edison is taken over, Edison has a job to do, to draft up new ideas. So people would probably notice, like the main body would notice if Edison started acting weird, or if Shaka started acting weird. Nobody would notice if York acted weird because all York does is just sleep and eat. You can honestly just eat a bunch of food and then go to sleep, and then it's just like they just bide your time and then wait. It would also mean that you'd have a lot of free time. You could go and call the Gorosei and everything like that. So it could just be York, and then we'll find out what York's real motivation here is. Remember, every one of the Vegapunks is divided up by a different fragment of Vegapunk's own personality and what they represent. Shaka represents good. Lilith represents evil. Pythagoras represents wisdom. Edison represents creativity. And then we have Atlas that represents wrath, and we have York that represents greed or desire, depending on the translation. Which, considering we also just had a big thing about desire in the last few chapters with talking about, devil fruits and the desire of humans and everything like that, it would make sense. And also, greed could lead to something like this, where York doesn't just desire things like base pleasures, like food and sleep and everything like that, but she also desires everything else, too. She's like Greed from Full Metal Alchemist a little bit, like, I desire everything, kind of like that. And then she's like, okay, when they went on their little field trip to Marijois a few years ago, and they got to see, he's like, wow, this is the top of the world, huh? And then she got to meet the Tenryubito. Even though they're horrible, despicable human beings, it's not about what they do, it's about their status. It's about what they are. And York, being the Vegapunk that literally embodies greed and desire, she would look at the Tenryubito and be like, these are the people that stand atop the world. These are the people that are literally venerated as gods to the people below. It doesn't matter if they're pieces of shit, it's the status that matters. So York is like, I want that. It's like, it kind of brings to question, like, if it really is York, if it's nobody, like, messing with York's mind or anything like that, like, if it is just York. And by the way, I don't think it's just York. I think there may be Caribou. One thing, I really want, for whatever reason, I really want Caribou to be involved in this traitor scheme. I don't know why. But anyway, regardless of any of that stuff, though, if Vegapunk never would have brought the satellites to Marijois and York never met the Tenryubito and never knew about that status, we might not be having this problem right now either. She might just never have known they existed, but since she embodies greed, she naturally wants the highest status in the world. If York knew about Eam-sama, she would probably want to be the next Eam-sama. You know what I mean? The Gorosei are Tenryubitos, so it's kind of the same thing there, but Eam is like above everything, so kind of like that. That's the end of the chapter, but yeah, so does, wait, hold on a second, wait a minute. Does that mean the main villain of this arc now, that are going to join the annals of all the great One Piece villains, Rob Lucci for Enies Lobby, Crocodile in Alabasta, Eneru in Skypiea, Magellan in Impel Down, the Admirals and Blackbeard, I guess, in Marineford, Doflamingo in Dressrosa, Kaido in Wano. The next great One Piece arc villain is a sexy giant woman that eats a lot of food. I'm okay with this! Okay, anyway, thanks for watching the video, everybody. Robin, Chopper, and Atlas are probably going to be the first people to arrive here, so we gotta see where that's going to go. And there might be more to this than just York. I mean, Oda might be just revealing one part of the mystery so far. There might be somebody else lurking about. If York is the one that is really behind everything, York could also control the Seraphim. That means also the other Seraphim that we haven't met yet. S Flamingo for Doflamingo, S Bat for Gecko Moria. He wouldn't be S Gecko because S Gecko is like gecko. It's a play on the pun of the word bat in Japanese. So he would be S Bat, S Crocodile, whatever. And so York could activate those Seraphim. So Robin and Chopper and Atlas could show up. He's like, we're taking you down, York. I know I could fight you. And then that's when York activates, like, yes, but I'm not really one for fighting. That's why I have them. And then she activates the other, Seraphim or whatever. So who's going to defeat York if York really is the final battle? I mean, what's going to happen there? I guess, it's interesting because, you know, Luffy fought against Big Mom during Totland briefly, and then during Wano once again briefly. It was Kid and Law that actually took out Big Mom. But Luffy's never really fought against, like, aside from Alvida, I guess, has never really fought against a woman as, like, his main arc opponent. I think Alvida was the last one, and that was literally the first one. I might be misremembering somebody here, but I really don't think so. Like, I'm thinking, like, final arc villain, not like, there's, like, obviously, like, Monet. Although Luffy never really fought Monet, so, you know, just kind of dumped him down a trash compactor. So, yeah, that would be interesting. Okay, we'll see where that goes. Gear 50 Luffy versus York. See what she's got. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Techig signing out. Later, all.